Wonder if it'll.
He's muted, so I have to.
Oh. It's funny how it always does that.
I know.
Okay.
Okay. Can get.
Is everything set up?
Kali Yuga Pavani, you good? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So it's now all.
Ready to go.
I guess I have to start now.
You do.
And all right. Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vande Gurun Shabaktan Nisham Shabatarakan Tapakasham Chakti Krishna Caitanya Samgakam. Vande Shri Krishna Caitanya Nityanando Sahodato Gododai Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamonudo Panchakalpa Trubhascha Kripa-sindhu Vyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Godadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Is that coming through?
It is now.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for the info, Madan. And just a reminder to the other devotees to mute original audio and click English.
So it may have been that the Mangala Charnam that I attempted to chant did not come through. As it was chanted here, who knows if it's that good of a Mangala. I mean, the verses chanted are awesome because they come from bona fide sources. But I'm pretty sure that even if you didn't have English on and the original audio muted, Mangala Charnam still does what it does. So I'm not going to repeat it. So here we are, part 3 of, I always forget the title of Dasya, Sakhya, Vaidhi, Raga. What, so what, now what? As I have been doing, we'll do a brief recap of what happened last time. Last time, we discussed the pastime of Sudama Vipra. Just in brief, Sudama had the attitude that he would not accept any type of material opulence. And he and his wife were very poor. So she became worried about him and suggested that maybe he should go to Dwarka and talk to his old school buddy, Krishna. At first, Sudama did not want to go see Krishna, especially to ask him for something. But then it became clear that all he really needed to do was show up in Dwarka. So he changed his mind and he thought, well, since my wife wants me to do this, and since my wife feels that we should have a little bit more opulence, apparently his mind changed from rejecting material opulence to being indifferent to material opulence. And that change in his mindset apparently set this whole pastime off. And so he went to go see Krishna, and people were astonished by how Krishna accepted him and embraced him as if he was an older brother. And long story short, well, Sudama, long story medium short, Sudama also brought 4 handfuls of rice for Krishna. And these 4 handfuls of rice were begged from neighbors. So Sudama wanted to see Krishna. He wanted to bring a present for Krishna since he was visiting him. And so he went outside of his home and brought some flat rice. Krishna was very happy to see Sudama. Sudama was very happy to see Krishna. Sudama didn't even he did not bring up that he wanted anything or that he needed anything. But of course, Krishna knew that because he knows everything, especially in Dwarka. He's, Aishvarik. It knows everything. So Krishna then and Sudama reminisced on their days of being in Gurukul together. They had served their spiritual master together, and especially one time got caught out in a storm getting some firewood for the spiritual master's wife. And apparently Krishna and Sudama underwent many such struggles to serve their guru, and in that way formed a bond. So they were happy, reminiscing on old days, and Sudama went back home the next day thinking, well, this is great. I saw Krishna. That was wonderful. And I forgot to I didn't ask him about anything. I should back up. There is the part where Sudama would not bring forth his little bag, his cloth of chipped rice, but Krishna forcibly took it from him and enjoyed eating some of it. And by Krishna being satisfied, then so much opulence went towards Sudama. And it was noted that Krishna briefly thought to himself, Sudama pleased the spiritual master. Sudama loves me, who am Krishna, God. Why is Sudama so poor? He shouldn't be so poor. But then it occurred to him, he was like, oh, Sudama's getting exactly what he wanted, which was no material opulence. So that was a thing that Krishna thought, and then he was like, oh, but now he wants some material opulence, so I'll give him some. 2 other things noted, or one, I don't know, is that Sudama felt bad about the gift of 4 palmfuls of chipped rice that he gave to Krishna. But Krishna thought that is more wealth than Sudama even has. He went outside of his home and brought like more wealth than he has at his disposal to give to me. So Krishna felt bad that all he was going to give Sudama was opulence that was more than the abode of Indra. But even though each of them felt bad at the quality of their gifts, they were both happy to have seen each other. So Sudama went home and then noticed that where his house used to be was actually a palace with many servants and a beautiful woman coming his way who actually ended up being his wife. And he was a little worried when he was going home because he thought, well, Krishna is so kind. He decided not to give me any opulence because he knew that I would be distracted by it. But then when he got home, he also thought, well, Krishna's kind. He decided to give us all this opulence. And Sudama was such a person that he was not disturbed by that newly found opulence. So that was the main topic of last class. And we ended up, I've got books on my phone, settling in on a couple of verses. I'm going to bring one of those verses back up now, and then another one a little later. I just have to find them on my phone. Let's see. So the verse that I want to highlight right now from last time is in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, the 81st chapter. So 1081. And let's see. Oh, where is it? You'd think I'd have it queued up. $36. All right. Here's the verse. Dasyaiva me so rida Sakhya maitri dasyam punar janmani syat mahanubhavtena gunalayena vishatratas tat purusha prasangam. Sudama said, the Lord is the supremely compassionate reservoir of all transcendental qualities. Life after life, may I serve him with love, friendship, and sympathy. And may I cultivate such firm attachment for him by the precious association of his devotees. So in this verse, there are words, so ridam, sakyam, dasyam, maitri. We're seeing this idea of friendliness, friendship, same-heartedness, sympathy, and servitude, dasya. So that's somewhat the theme here, is that we're looking at these ideas of friendship and servitude and how these are found. Ultimately, we're going to get there, I think. Ultimately, well, in Gora Lila, this is a roundabout way of trying to compare and contrast different types of Dasya, Sakhya, Vaidhi, Raga devotees, and see how this will point in the direction of the Dasya Bhav that's found for Gauranga. And in this verse, Madan Gopal was nice enough to send me some commentaries, and we saw the different commentators talk about this verse. And one idea that stuck out to me was that Sudama his dasya was for Krishna, but then he felt the friendship of Krishna for him. So there is the idea that we can go in a relationship two people will see each other in certain ways. And since Krishna is God and Sudama knew that Krishna was God, there was that element of Aishvarya indifference. But at the same time, since Krishna was so friendly to Sudama, and since they really had some shared experiences, there was that idea of Sakhya. So earlier this week, this is still kind of a recap, but who knows when the recap segued into today's. I guess it did at the beginning because we're here today right now. But earlier, I would like to share a conversation that Kanuram and I had on, I don't remember, we hung out a couple of days last week. There's Kanuram waving something. And we were doing some fencing work in the pasture together, walking around. And we were thinking about this idea, which I'm trying to get back to, of what, so what, now what, and how to use that. So one thing that came to our minds was what stuck out to us in this pastime about Sudama. And one of the things that stuck out was that how important intention is, because we noticed that as soon as Sudama's intention changed, then everything changed with that. And I thought, okay, so what? That's important to me because based on my intentions and my practice, that will have a big result as to what happens in my life. So what? Intention is important. So what? It's important to my practice because my intentions are noticed by the Lord and whoever else notices things in me and helps my path of bhakti. And so now what? Faced with that information, I decided, okay, I am going to spend this week trying to notice at least one or two or three intentions that I have consciously or unconsciously. I'm just bringing out this idea of what, so what, now what, and how to use it, and how Kanuram and I talked about it. So I don't know if I should share all my intentions, but I noticed some intentions that I have without thinking, unconscious intentions that may not serve me well in my path of bhakti. And I also noticed others that maybe serve me well. And that was all I was trying to do this week. I was trying to identify intentions because I was trying to keep it simple. So as I have brought up before, and some of you may be familiar with this, and this idea of what was important, why is it important, and now what, when I made a plan of now what, I tried to keep it within the SMART goals. Of course, I don't know if this translates very well into Spanish because SMART is how SMART is spelled in English. And then with each letter, there's a word that corresponds with each of the letters in the word SMART. And so I showed myself not to be very smart by now only realizing this. And if I was really smart, I would have done some research and tried to be more inclusive. But I have another type of smartness that understands I probably would have never gotten there. But anyway, but still, S, specific, this goal. I was thinking, all right, I will identify intentions. M, measurable. I will try to identify 1, 2, or 3 intentions. A, achievable. Yeah, that's doable. R, is it relevant? Relevant. Yes, it's relevant. And T, time bound. I was going to try to do this to myself before Friday came around, and I did. So that was just me digressing and putting more idea on this, trying to pay attention to what we get from the scriptures, previous acharyas, Leela, and then how to use it in our own lives. Another interesting conversation that happened between Kanuram and I was that Kanuram pointed out a what from the Leela. And he thought it stood out to him that Sudama Vipra gave more than everything. And it was an Atma Navedana type thing. He was giving more than everything. And Krishna wanted to give more than everything back to Sudama. And then Kanuram was thinking, so what? It seems important to give more than everything to Krishna to make progress. Now what? How do I give more than everything? He was thinking, which I thought, this is, yeah, that's a good idea. And we discussed it, and we came to the conclusion that commentators have said that Atma Navedana is really, really hard to do. So this is where our SMART goals come in handy. If you remember, A was achievable. So if our goal for the week involved Atma Navedana, it may not be achievable for us. So to turn that one into an achievable goal, we discussed options to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. We decided one option of giving more than what we normally have would be to do a little bit more cow seva, because that is one thing that Kanuram and I do together, is we serve the cows and do things in the pasture. So we decided, well, maybe we'll try to get together one more time before the next week. And we did do that. We got together and we moved a cow from one pasture to another in a trailer. And while doing that, we chanted Hare Krishna and discussed these things and found out that when we meet together, if we force ourselves to meet, which is a type of Vaidhi, we needed to force ourselves. We found that Shravanam, Kirtanam, Krishna Smaranam happened, and Guru Seva happened. And then we also discussed some ways, well, how can we find ourselves, not that we are in this Sudama Vipra Leela, but in what ways do we have things in common with what was going on between Krishna and Sudama? And we found this to be an enlivening exercise as well. We found that Kanuram and I also spent time together in the house of the Guru. And we found that we had a bond because of that. And we found that serving the cows was a way that we could serve our present Guru. And since Krishna told Sudama that service to the Guru pleases him, we understood that while we were out there serving cows, which some of them came from our guru, we were doing guru seva. So we felt like, hey, we're doing some service, Dasya. Hey, we're friends. Certain Sakhya between the two of us. And we're serving Krishna, because serving the guru is as good as serving Krishna. And we found that to be very enlivening. So I mainly was just bringing up some different ways that to apply this what, so what, now what, these ideas of Dasya, Sakhya, Vaidhi, and Raga. I think our hearts were stirred a tiny bit, but there's so much further to go, of the Sudama Vipra. But today we're trying to get into where our second verse that I was talking about from this past time, which is 10:81:16, Quaham Daritra Papiyan, Qua Krishna Sri Caitanya, Brahma Bandhur Itismaham Bahubyam Parirambitaha. Sudama said, who am I? A sinful, poor friend of a Brahmin. Who is Krishna? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with 6 opulences. Nonetheless, he has embraced me with his 2 arms. So, one place I followed this verse, maybe some of you have heard, one method that Guru Maharaj mentions to us as a method of reading is that you can follow purports or commentaries to other scriptures. So one place that this particular verse from the 10th canto in the Bhagavatam shows up again is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Lila, in the 17th chapter. Excuse me while I flip through my phone library here, which I do have something queued up. Here it is. In the 17th chapter, the youthful pastimes of Lord Gauranga are talked about. And there is a time where Lord Gauranga was performing Sankirtan with his devotees, you know, doing their thing. And then somebody came by and wanted to give an interpretation on the name. And that was not something that he wanted to hear at that time from that person. So Lord Gauranga decided to jump into the Ganges to purify himself. And right after this was mentioned, there were 2 verses mentioned. Man, I thought I had them. Hold on. I need to stick with books, with pages. But anyway, let's see. Where is it? Oh, yeah, here we go. Then there's 2 verses. One says, Lord Chaitanya then praised Murari Gupta, saying, you have satisfied Lord Krishna. Hearing this, Murari Gupta quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. And that verse was Paham Darijapapiyam Pa Krishna Sri Caitanya. Here's a little different translation to the same verse we just said. Since I am but a poor, sinful Brahma Bandhu, not Brahmanically qualified, although born in a Brahmin family, and you, Lord Krishna, are the shelter of the goddess of fortune, it is simply wonderful, my dear Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, that you have embraced me with your arms. So it said that Murari Gupta said this verse, and just following this around, I'm going to look at the purport that Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada put. Let's see. So Prabhupada said that Sudama Vipra considered himself not a Brahmin. But then here's the purport. Murari Gupta could not be called even a Brahma Bandhu because he was born of a Vaidhi family, and according to the social structure, was therefore considered a Sudra. But Krishna bestowed special mercy upon Murari Gupta because he was a beloved devotee of the Lord. And then the purport of Sri Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati says that no qualification in this material world can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet everything becomes successful simply through development of devotional service to the Lord. No material qualification pleases Krishna. And Krishna said that himself in the Sudama Vipra pastime when he was reminiscing on days in the Gurukul. He said, I, Krishna, the soul of all souls, am not pleased by material opulence, by Brahminical initiation, by penances or austerities, but I am very pleased by someone who serves the spiritual master. Similar thing here. This is the main theme of today. No material qualification pleases Krishna, but devotional service does. So Murari Gupta. We came from the Bhagavatam to the Caitanya Charitamrita, and now here we are at Murari Gupta speaking this verse from the Sudama Vipra pastimes. So now, through the lens of the Caitanya Charitamrita, we're going to look at Murari Gupta a little bit. I've got to get back to my library. Let's see. Okay. If we go back to the 10th chapter of the Adi Leela, we find some verses. There are only a few. Murari Gupta, the 21st branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was a storehouse of love of Godhead. His great humility and meekness melted the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Srila Murari Gupta never accepted charity from friends, nor did he accept money from anyone. He practiced as a physician and maintained his family with his earnings. As Murari Gupta treated his patients, by his mercy, both their bodily and spiritual diseases subsided. We are only zeroing in on a few aspects of the Sudama Vipra pastimes and the Murari Gupta as a devotee. And you can see in these just a few verses, and if we think back to the Sudama, it's kind of amazing how much is really found in pastimes. So for instance, there are other applications, like for household life. Both Sudama and Murari Gupta are great examples for householder devotees. And how to be servants of the guru and this, that, and the other. I just wanted to point that out. We're going to jump to chapter 15 of the Madhya Leela. Lord Chaitanya was saying farewell to various devotees who came to Jagannath Puri for the Rath Yatra. And while he was doing that, he would say different things to different devotees. So there are some verses where Lord Chaitanya is addressing Murari Gupta. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then embraced Murari Gupta. There's this embrace happening. And began to speak about his firm faith in devotional service. This was heard by all the devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, previously, I induced Murari Gupta again and again to be allured by Lord Krishna. I said to him, my dear Gupta, Lord Sri Krishna, Vrajendra Kumar, is the supreme sweetness. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the origin of all incarnations and the source of everything. He is pure, transcendental love itself, and he is the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. He is like a mine of gems. He is expert at everything, very intelligent and sober, and he is the summit of all transcendental humors. His character is very sweet, and his pastimes are melodious. He is expert in intelligence, and thus he enjoys all his pastimes and mellows. I then requested Murari Gupta, worship Krishna, take shelter of him. But for his service, nothing appeals to the mind. In this way, he heard from me again and again. By my influence, his mind was a little converted. So Lord Chaitanya was trying to convince Murari Gupta to serve Krishna. After this, Murari Gupta went home and spent the whole night thinking how he would have to give up the association of Raghunath, Lord Brahmachandra. Thus, he was overwhelmed. Murari Gupta then began to pray at the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra. He prayed that death would come that night because it was not possible for him to give up the service of the lotus feet of Raghunath. Thus, Murari Gupta cried the entire night. Now, those of us who have been listening to some recent classes by Padmanabha Swami, Padmanabha Maharaj was pointing out the perfection of service. For instance, I think it was Raghunath Das Goswami who worshipped, was it Raghunath? Worshipped the Govardhan Shila with his tears. If it wasn't him, it was another great devotee, forgive me. And then also, I think it was. And then Gadadhar, so that was like the perfection of Govardhan Shila worshiping, to bathe the Shila with your tears. And Gadadhar Pandit was said that his Bhagavatam, you couldn't read it anymore because his tears had taken care of all the words. So here, I'm just thinking about what Padmanabha Swami said when I see that Murari Gupta cried all night long. That this idea of crying is there. There was no rest for his mind, therefore he could not sleep, but stayed awake the entire night. In the morning, Murari Gupta came to see me. Catching hold of my feet and crying, he submitted an appeal. Murari Gupta said, I have sold my head unto the lotus feet of Raghunath. I cannot withdraw my head, for that would give me too much pain. It is not possible for me to give up the service of Raghunath's lotus feet. At the same time, if I do not do so, I shall break your order. What shall I do? There's a word, I think, in this that I want to bring up. Is it right? Hold on. Maybe it's in the... I'll come to that later. In this way, Murari Gupta appealed to me, saying, "You are all merciful. So kindly grant me this mercy. Let me die before you so that all my doubts will be finished." This is now Lord Chaitanya speaking. Hearing this, I became very happy. I then raised Murari Gupta and embraced him. I said to him, "All glories to you, Murari Gupta. Your method of worship is very firmly fixed, so much so that even upon my request, your mind did not turn. The servitor must have love and affection for the lotus feet of the Lord exactly like this. Even if the Lord wants separation, a devotee cannot abandon the shelter of his lotus feet. Just to test your firm faith in the Lord, I requested you again and again to change your worship from Lord Ramachandra to Krishna." In this way, I congratulated Murari Gupta, saying, "Indeed, you are the incarnation of Hanuman. Consequently, you are the eternal servant of Lord Ramachandra. Why should you give up the worship of Lord Ramachandra and his lotus feet?" Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "I accept this Murari Gupta as my life and soul. When I hear of his humility, it perturbs my very life." Okay, so we've come from Sudama Vipra, this verse, and then this verse that Sudama spoke was now also spoken by Murari Gupta. And now we're hearing Lord Chaitanya himself saying that Murari Gupta is Hanuman. Let's see. I'm not finding exactly what I'm looking for. And it may be in some other verses that I'm getting to. But there's one word that we're on the lookout for here. As one of the angas of bhakti, one is dasya. And that anga is said to be having the attitude of a servant. And we can see that this attitude of a servant, a kinkar, or kainkarya, servitude, or was it Kim Karomi, something, what may I do for you? I am not a Sanskrit scholar. I am not a scholar. But Kinkara is this idea of servant. And this word is going to come up in a couple of different places in what we're talking about today. I see that we're running a little short on time now. I'm going to go ahead and skip to a couple of other verses. Since we're at Hanuman, there were going to be 8 verses that I was going to zero in on, but I'm going to cut it down to 1 or 2 verses. So Hanuman, you may know, is the servant of Lord Ramachandra. And if we now jump to the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 19th chapter, chapter 5. We're going to find some verses from Hanuman himself. It said, let's see. I'm trying to, just to set it up. This is the chapter called A Description of the Island of Jambu Dweep. So Shukadev Goswami tells us that in Kim Purusha Varsha, the great devotee Hanuman is always engaged with the inhabitants of that land in devotional service to Lord Ramachandra. A host of Gandharvas is always engaged in chanting the glories of Lord Ram. That chanting is always extremely auspicious. Hanumanji constantly hears those glories with complete attention, and Hanuman chants the following mantras. For the sake of time, I'm skipping a couple of these mantras. And I'm going to go on to this one. Since Lord Sri Ramachandra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, he is not attached to anything in this material world. He is the most beloved super soul of all self-realized souls, and he is their very intimate friend. He is full of all opulences. Therefore, he could not possibly have suffered because of his separation from his wife, nor could he have given up his wife and Lakshman, his younger brother. To give up either would have been absolutely impossible. Main thing here, Lord Ram is not interested in anything material. A few years ago, while I was at Saragrahi, I just so happened to be there during Ram Vijay, and I decided to read these verses from the Bhagavatam. And one part of the Srila Prabhupada's purport stuck out to me in this verse, and I'm going to read it now. Quote, since the Lord is always spiritually qualified, he is attached to servants who always render transcendental loving service unto him. He, we're talking about the Lord here, he is attached to the truth in life, not to Brahminical qualities. Indeed, he is never attached to any material qualities. Although he is the super soul of all living entities, he is specifically manifest to those who are self-realized, and he is especially dear to the hearts of his transcendental devotees. I'm going to the next verse, and this is the main verse that I was kind of going for. I'll read the Sanskrit. Najam manunam mahato naso bagam navan nabudhir nakritis tosho hetu tairyad srishtan apino vano kasash chakara Sakhya Bhutta Lakshmana Rajaha. One cannot establish a friendship with the Supreme Lord Ramachandra on the basis of material qualities, such as one's birth in an aristocratic family, one's personal beauty, one's eloquence, one's sharp intelligence, or one's superior race or nation. None of these qualifications is actually a prerequisite for friendship with Lord Sri Ramachandra. Otherwise, how is it possible that although we, uncivilized inhabitants of the forest, have not taken noble births, although we have no physical beauty, and although we cannot speak like gentlemen, Lord Ramachandra has nevertheless accepted us as friends, because he sees the truth in life. I added that. But this verse gave me great hope, because I am a forest person, not very beautiful, and a lot of boxes are checked from here. These material opulences. Sometimes we think, well, I have to be able to sing very nicely, or I have to be able to be a scholar, or I have to be able to speak like a gentleman, or be educated, to have some sort of qualification for service to the Lord. But today we've looked at 2 or 3 or 4 different verses of the Lord himself and great devotees such as Hanuman saying, no material qualification does the trick. No penances, no learning, no Brahminical initiation does it. Just devotional service, service to the Guru, those things, or even if we end up having some love and or affection for the Lord, those things actually please Krishna or Ram or Gaura. So just hearing about what type of person he is gives us great hope, and also just really wants us to, helps me anyway, want to know more about him. He is great. He is awesome. He's fantastic. And therefore, let's try to serve him. I am going to read a little bit more of the commentary of this verse and then end. So let's see. Rupa Goswami has also said that the price for achieving God's favor is simply one's sincere eagerness to have it. And then in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is said, behold the great fortune of the devotee, Kolavecha. Lord Brahma and Shiva shed tears upon seeing his greatness. One cannot attain Lord Krishna by any amount of wealth, followers, or learning. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is controlled only by pure devotion. There it is again. Srila Prabhupada continues. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a very sincere devotee whose name was Kolavecha Sridhar, and whose only business was to sell pots made of the skin of banana trees. Whatever income he had, he used 50% for the worship of Mother Ganges. And with the other 50%, he provided for his necessities. Be careful. On the whole, he was so very poor that he lived in a cottage that had a broken roof with many holes in it. He could not afford brass utensils, and therefore he drank water from an iron pot. Nevertheless, he was a great devotee of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is a typical example of how a poor man with no material possessions can become the most exalted devotee of the Lord. The conclusion is that one cannot attain shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna or Chaitanya through material opulence. That shelter is attainable only by pure devotional service. To be honest, I wanted to do more research into Hanuman. If anyone out there did do such research or wanted to add anything, they could in a minute. But as often is the case, our subject matter is such that oftentimes one verse or a part of one verse could serve as subject matter to talk about for a long time. But today, I was mainly trying to connect Sudama Vipra with Murari Gupta and then Hanuman with this idea of there's no material qualification to serve Krishna, but by serving him, who is our best friend, that can please him. I will now stop my rambling discourse, and I see Mitra Sain Prabhu appeared on the screen. Hopefully he has some comments, or if I can get my other arms to disable the not mute button.
Yeah.
I'm doing it without these arms. I have other ones that are.
I think that worked.
Did it? Mitra, did you want to say something? Can you unmute yourself? Is it possible? I'll try to.
Testing, anything coming through? Okay. Just wanted to say every conversation I've had with you was really high level, and your class was what I expected. I'm sorry, I don't have anything topical. Just wanted to say that.
It was good.
No. Someone correct me.
Everyone put your face on there and give them a thumbs up. Let them see you. Come on, Kanaram. Show them what's up.
This is not.
Thumbs up. There you go. Oh, 2 thumbs. All right, good enough.
Come on. Someone else correct me. Stop with your thumbs. This is not a pat Krishna Caitanya on the back session. Okay. Oh, well.
Yes, it is. We want more. We want more.
I'll come over. But any questions? Any concerns? I know this idea of what, so what, now what is maybe kind of, I don't know. I don't know if anyone's tried to use it. I think it was helpful to Kanaram and I, we were trying it out. Did anything stick out to anyone? You could put it in the chat or try to speak with a voice of something from what we talked about today that you feel like could be useful in your own life. I'll share one. The big thing that sticks out to me, what sticks out to me is that Krishna is the type of fellow who appreciates love more than any type of material thing. And even uncivilized people from the forest could be involved with him. So that's my what. And so what? That's important to me because I have never been very good at being a Brahmin. To be honest, when I start hearing the different things that I have to wash and the different mantras that I have to do, I shut down a little bit. I can't pull off the Brahminical actions so well. So it's important to me what. It's nice to know that really Krishna, that's not the biggest thing with him. So now what? My now what is I just forget about Brahminical things altogether. I don't even wash my hands. No, I'm I'm sorry. No. My now what is, okay, I'm going to do what I can to hear about and talk about. Oh, and that was quoted somewhere. Srila Prabhupada brought up the Yare Deka Tare Ka. I don't remember how that one goes. whoever you meet, whoever you run into, talk to them about Krishna. And that way, it doesn't matter what situation you're in. You know, I'll be there. And actually, we're gonna hit that 7th chapter of the Madhya Lila maybe next time or for the last time, because our verse 1081:16 comes up there too. So my now what is basically, let's talk about that fellow who happens to be God, but he's a really, really, I mean, cool guy who will accept even such people who are not very Brahminical and maybe inhabitants of the forest. So I'm just going to try to do that. I don't know if that was a very good what, so what, now what. But that is what we're trying to see. What stuck out? It's said in a purport somewhere in the Bhagavatam, and maybe also in I guess a verse itself, maybe in the 4th canto. I only remember things that point in certain directions. That hearing, proper hearing, it goes in the ear, and then it goes down to the heart, and it changes things a little bit. And then if you heard something, and then change your behavior, you try to put the instruction into practice, that is proper hearing. And that's really another way that I was trying to use this idea of what, so what, now what. And for next time, we're also going to bring up a verse that has the word prasanga in it, because our verse 1081:36, whichever one it was, the other one from Sudama has that word prasanga in it. And there's a really cool verse from the 3rd canto that Mitra knows that has the word prasanga in it. And it really is another way of saying what, so what, now what, do it. Anyway, I'll stop. Connor, you got something? Yeah, I saw your mute thing go away.
I was just going to say that I was just going to make a comment. It can be like you're saying, there are times you hear something and you take it very seriously. Like I was thinking that Sudama, what he did, he offered more than like everything that he had. But fortunately, I was able to talk with a devotee who was able to like clarify that understanding. And like you were able to say in the course of discussing Atmanivedanam, that Atmanivedanam is like, it's rare for a sadhaka. So I was taking that very seriously and like taking it to heart. Like, how can I give everything? Like, I give like a little bit, like maybe an hour a day or something. And then the other 23 hours are only like at best indirectly Krishna conscious. So how can I give everything or even more than everything? That seems like lifetimes and lifetimes away. But to understand from talking with you that like Atmanivedanam, it doesn't mean what I think it means. Like that's a great relief. And that it's rare to achieve for a sadhaka. That kind of thing like can put somebody back on the right track. Oh, I'm doing fine. Like I'm doing as well as I could like be expected to in some ways. So anyway, I just wanted to jump in with that. Thank you.
Or you could be Atmanivedanam right now, but I stopped you. No. No, but that's why I was saying, like when we read stuff like say give 50%, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but that's why I said be careful, you know, because you might be like, I got to give 50%. And then I'm not advocating for not surrendering. Or just saying you got to think about it. Thanks, Kanaram, for saying something. Thanks, Mitra. Although I wish you would have said something rather than thumbs up and good job and all that kind of stuff, but it was good to see you. All right, we're going to stop now. Vancha kalpa trivishcha kripa sindhu vyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Let's see if we can turn it off without using a hand. Oh, hold on. There's a Spanish paragraph in the chat that I have no idea what it says. It's probably, yes, I can hear you. pranams back at you, and I would just say that another thing as far as, and I don't know, part of the way for integrating the scriptures, guru's instructions, Leela, whatever, is our own personal responsibility. And responsibility, that sounds, sorry, I didn't mean to bring up that word. I mean that there are going to be certain things that stick out to us, and we think, oh, that's important for me, and I think I can do that one too. And then we incorporate even that little bit into our lives, and then we find out that that is helpful to us. So what I'm hoping is to invite people to figure out for themselves how to integrate these teachings into their own lives, because no one else can do it for you. I'm not saying that anyone said that someone else could do it for you, but I think sometimes we think that we want to hear someone tell us everything we need to do. But part of, and that's a great start, but then part of going further is this integration that Annapurna was talking about. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for listening. Can you end it now?
Yep.
I think unless there's more, did you look on the Facebook? Maybe we should just look on there and make sure that, I always forget to look on there. Is there anything on there? Anybody? I didn't want to neglect Facebook people. Unless they're putting thumbs up or something, and they need to stop that. Is it? Okay. Oh, is it? Okay.
No,
Okay.
no questions.
Now we'll go away for real. Thank you for coming. Hopefully we'll be back next time. Thank you, Kali Yuga Pavana. I appreciate you being here with us. And thank you. We'll talk about the thermometer maybe next time. That's another technique that we use in experiential education. Yeah, it's a technique. There's anyway. All right.
All right,
Let's get
Krishna.
off of here.